I remember the day as if it were yesterday, though many seasons have passed since. The day my grandchild was taken into the arms of another family, a family chosen to give them what I could not. I had raised children of my own through hunger, through storms, through nights when there was no medicine, no food, only prayers and faith. But life had its way of breaking me down, of stripping me until I was left with nothing but my love. And sometimes love, no matter how fierce, is not enough in the eyes of the world. My own child, my daughter, was young and unready when she brought life into this world. I stood by her as best I could, but the weight was too heavy. The papers were signed. The officials said it was for the best. And suddenly, my grandchild's tiny hands that had once wrapped around my finger, were gone. I never forgot that moment. The sound of the door closing after they carried the baby away has echoed in my soul for years. People said I should be grateful. They said the child would have opportunities I could never provide, comfort I could not dream of, a home with security and promise. And I nodded yes, I nodded because they were right. But in the secret chambers of my heart, gratitude and grief lived side by side. Gratitude that my grandchild would not go hungry. Grief that it would not be my face they remembered, not my arms they clung to when they cried at night. Time moved on as it always does. The seasons turned, the fields blossomed and withered. My hair grew silver. Outwardly I lived, but inwardly a part of me remained frozen in that moment of goodbye. I would walk through the market and catch a glimpse of a child, the same age my grandchild would be, and my heart would skip. Was it them? Did they laugh like that? Did they have the same eyes as me? On birthdays, I lit candles even when no one else remembered. I whispered blessings into the quiet air, sending love across invisible distances, praying somehow those prayers would find them. I imagined them laughing in another home, calling another woman Grandma. I told myself it was fine. That love was big enough to share. But the ache never left. Years turned into decades. I never spoke much about it because how could I explain a hole in the heart that never healed? People think wounds fade with time, but some remain, tender and raw, no matter how many years you cover them with silence. Then one day, a letter came. My hands shook as I unfolded it. The words blurred through my tears, but I understood enough. My grandchild, now grown, wanted to meet me. After all the years, after all the wondering, they had searched. They had found me. I pressed the letter to my chest, trembling. Joy surged through me like a river breaking its dam. I laughed and cried in the same breath. To know they were alive, well, curious about me. It was more than I had ever dared to hope, but with the joy came fear. What if they looked into my eyes and saw nothing? What if they measured me against the family that raised them and found me lacking? Could I bear to lose them twice? That night I could not sleep. I walked the floor of my little room, whispering prayers, arguing with myself. Should I prepare gifts? Should I tell them everything or keep some secrets locked away? My reflection in the mirror startled me. An old woman with wrinkles and tired eyes. Would they see me as a stranger? Would they pity me? Or worse, feel nothing at all? I thought back to the day they were taken, the way their small body had fit into my arms, the way I had whispered, "Forgive me, my angel. One day, if God allows, we will meet again." And now that day was here. I began to write letters I never sent, letters full of memories, apologies, dreams. I wrote of the nights I sat awake wondering if they were safe. I wrote of the birthdays I celebrated alone, the prayers I whispered into the wind. I wrote of love that had never dimmed, even in absence. Perhaps one day I would give these letters, perhaps not, but writing them steadied my heart. Days before the meeting, I tidied my home. I arranged flowers, scrubbed the old table, laid out the photographs I had kept hidden away. Their mother as a child, my own face when I was younger. Proof that I had once been strong. Each picture was a piece of a story I longed to share, but I also feared overwhelming them. Would they want to know me? Or would they only be curious for a moment before returning to their real life? This is the secret pain of a grandmother whose grandchild was raised by others. The joy of being remembered is always shadowed by the fear of being replaced. My love had no expiration date, but would theirs? On the morning of our meeting, I dressed carefully. My hands trembled as I buttoned my blouse, as I braided my thinning hair. Every wrinkle felt exposed. Every sign of age a reminder that I was not the woman I once had been. But love pushed me forward. Love gave me courage. As I sat waiting, my heart pounded like it had not in years. Every sound outside made me jump. Every minute stretched like an hour. And when at last the knock came, my breath caught. This was it. The moment I had prayed for, dreamed of, feared. I rose slowly, steadying myself on the arm of the chair, and walked to the door. My hand hovered on the handle, my heart whispering 100 questions. Would they smile? Would they call me Grandma? Or would they see me as nothing more than a stranger with shared blood? I opened the door, and there they were. They stood before me, taller than I imagined, older, of course. Yet in their face I caught glimpses of the baby I once held, the curve of the cheek, the shape of the eyes. It was as though time had played a trick, letting me see the infant and the adult at once. My throat tightened, words refusing to come. "Grandma," they whispered, almost like a question. I wanted to reach out, to pull them close, but I hesitated. What if it was too much? What if they weren't ready? My hands trembled, torn between caution and the tidal wave of love surging through me. "Yes," I finally breathed, my voice shaking. "Yes, my dear, I am your grandmother." For a moment, silence stretched between us. Then slowly they smiled. It was a shy smile, uncertain but genuine, and it broke something inside me. Tears I had held back for years burst forth. "I'm sorry," I said, pressing a hand to my face. "I never wanted to cry in front of you. It's just, I've waited so long." They stepped closer, awkward at first, then with growing confidence, and before I knew it, their arms were around me. I clung to them, breathing in the scent of someone I thought I might never know. My heart pounded wildly, both in joy and in sorrow. "I wanted to meet you," they said softly against my shoulder. All my life I knew I was adopted. My parents never hid it. But lately, I felt this pull to know where I came from, to know you. Their words wrapped around me like a balm. To know me. After years of wondering if they even remembered I existed, here they were, choosing to stand in my doorway. I led them inside, my hands shaking as I poured tea, my mind racing with questions. Did they like their adoptive parents? Were they happy? Did they resent us for letting them go? I wanted to ask everything, but I also feared the answers. We sat at the table, and I noticed how they looked around the room, their gaze falling on the old photographs I had laid out. "Is that my mother?" they asked, pointing to a faded picture of my daughter as a child. "Yes," I whispered. "She was about your age there." They studied the photo, then looked back at me. "I look like her," I nodded, tears threatening again. "You do, very much." For hours we talked. At first, cautiously, about simple things, their studies, their hobbies, my garden. Then deeper, about family, about the years apart. I told them about the day they were born, how small they were, how I held them and prayed over them. I did not tell them the full pain of the adoption. Not yet. I wanted this first meeting to be about joy, not guilt. They listened quietly, their eyes never leaving mine. "I used to wonder about you," they admitted. "I wondered if you ever thought of me, if you even remembered me." My chest ached at the words. I reached across the table and took their hand. "Remember you?" "My dear, I never stopped. Not for a single day. Every birthday, every New Year, every time I looked at the stars, I thought of you. You were never forgotten. Not once." Their eyes glistened, and for the first time I saw the bond between us. A bond not erased by time or distance. Blood may not be everything, but love leaves a mark that never fades. As the sun dipped low and the shadows stretched across the room, a heaviness settled in my chest. I knew this moment could not last forever. They would return to their life, to the family that raised them, and though I was grateful for that family, grateful beyond words, I feared the comparison. So when they finally stood to leave, promising to visit again, I smiled bravely, though my heart trembled. "Thank you for coming," I said softly. "You've given me a gift I never thought I'd receive." They hugged me again and whispered, "I'll be back. I want to know more." After the door closed, I sank into my chair, tears streaming freely. The joy of seeing them was indescribable, but so too was the fear that this was temporary, that curiosity would fade, and I would be left waiting once more. That night I prayed longer than usual. I thanked God for bringing my grandchild to me, for letting me hold them again, even briefly, and I asked for strength, because love, as beautiful as it is, can also break a heart when it is not returned fully. In the days that followed, they visited again. Each time my joy grew, but so too did the shadow in my heart. They spoke often of their adoptive family, the parents who had raised them, the siblings they grew up with, the traditions they cherished. Their eyes sparkled with affection when they spoke of them, and I listened with mixed emotions. I was glad, truly glad, that they had been loved so well, but each mention also reminded me of the years I missed, of the memories that belonged to someone else, and in my quiet moments I wondered, when the choice must be made, who will they choose? Will it be them? The family who raised them? Or me? The grandmother who waited in silence all these years. The visits became regular. Every week my door would open, and there they were, carrying the light of youth into my old home. Each time I felt my heart grow stronger, as if love itself had become my medicine. We spoke of many things. I showed them the garden where I had once grown vegetables to feed their mother. I pulled out old quilts I had stitched by hand, pointing to the faded patches where tiny hands had once tugged. They listened with patience, sometimes with awe, sometimes with tears. But as days passed, I began to notice something. In nearly every conversation, their words circled back to the family that had raised them. My mom, well, my adoptive mom, she always bakes this special cake on my birthday, they said once, smiling fondly. It's a tradition we never miss. Another time, Dad taught me to ride a bike when I was 6. He ran beside me, cheering until I could balance on my own. And again, my little sister. She's not blood, but I can't imagine life without her. We're so close. I smiled each time, nodding, asking questions. Outwardly, I celebrated their joy. Inwardly, however, a storm brewed. Every story of love they shared was a story that did not include me. Every memory they cherished was a memory I had not been there to witness. One evening, after they left, I sat alone by the window, staring at the moon. My chest ached with a familiar sorrow. I had prayed for them to be loved, and God had answered. Yet now that very love felt like a wall between us, a reminder of all the years that belonged to another family. I wrestled with conflicting feelings. On one hand, I was grateful beyond measure that they had been raised in safety and affection. On the other, I felt invisible, like a shadow in the background of their story. When they visited again, I finally asked, my voice trembling, Do you ever feel torn between the two families, between them and me?" They looked at me gently, their eyes soft. "Sometimes," they admitted. "But mostly I just feel lucky. I have 2 families who care about me. Not everyone can say that." Their words were kind, but they cut deep. 2 families, yes, but one had held them through every scraped knee, every birthday, every milestone. The other, me, had held them only in my heart, never in reality. Still, I tried to hide my pain. "That's good, my dear," I whispered. "It means love has always surrounded you." They smiled, reaching for my hand. "It has, and I'm thankful for both." That night I lay awake again, my mind swirling. Was it selfish of me to want more? Was it wrong to long for a place in their heart equal to the one their adoptive family held? Love is not a competition, I reminded myself, and yet the human heart aches when it feels second. The next visit was even harder. They brought photographs of their adoptive parents, eager to show me. "This is Mom and Dad," they said proudly, holding up a picture of a smiling couple. "They've always been there for me. I owe them everything." I took the photo, my hands shaking. Their faces were kind, warm, the faces of people who had given my grandchild a good life. "They look wonderful," I said sincerely. And they were, but as I handed the picture back, a sharp pang tore through me. They called those people Mom and Dad, titles I had dreamed of hearing directed at me in some way, even just as Grandma. The grandchild looked at me then, as if sensing my thoughts. "I hope you don't feel left out," they said softly. "It's just, they've been my whole world for so long." Tears welled in my eyes, though I tried to blink them away. "I understand, my dear. Truly I do. I only want your happiness. That's all I've ever wanted." And it was true. But truth does not cancel pain. After they left, I wept. I wept for the years stolen by circumstance, for the lullabies I never sang, for the birthdays I never attended. I wept because love, though boundless, cannot rewrite history. Yet even in my tears, a quiet strength rose within me. Perhaps my role was not to compete, but to complete. Perhaps I was not meant to replace, but to remind. To show them that love is not measured by years lived together, but by the depth of the heart that carries it. The next time they came, I decided to be honest. "My child," I said, "sometimes I fear you will forget me, that your bond with them is so strong. There will be no room for me." They squeezed my hand tightly. "Grandma, I could never forget you. Even before I met you, I felt like a part of me was missing. Now that you're here, I feel more whole. I love them, yes, but I love you too. It's different, but it's real." Those words healed something raw inside me. It was not perfect. It did not erase the past, but it was enough to remind me that love, once planted, always grows. One afternoon, as autumn leaves tumbled across my yard, they came to visit again. They carried with them an air of thoughtfulness, as if something weighed heavily on their mind. "Grandma," they began, settling into the chair across from me, "I need to tell you something." I braced myself. My heart, fragile as it was, beat louder with every pause they took. They sighed, folding their hands together. "I love being here with you. I feel something I can't quite explain, like I've known you all along. But I also want to be honest. My adoptive family. They are my first loyalty. They raised me, sacrificed for me, and gave me everything. I can't ever betray them." The words landed like stones in my chest. "First loyalty." I smiled faintly, but inside I crumbled. I had feared this, and now it was spoken aloud. "I understand," I whispered, though my voice trembled. "Of course you feel that way. They've been there all your life." They reached for my hand, eyes full of compassion. "It doesn't mean I don't care about you. I do, I want you in my life. But if it ever came down to choosing, Grandma, I would have to choose them." A silence stretched between us. I forced myself to nod, though tears blurred my vision. "You don't need to apologize, my dear. It is natural. They gave you a home, a childhood. I am grateful for them too." But when they left that evening, my mask crumbled. I sat in the quiet house, clutching the edge of the table, my heart aching. How does one accept being second in a place where they had once dreamed of being first? For days I carried the heaviness. I tried to busy myself with small chores, but the truth lingered. I was not the center of their world. I was an addition, not the foundation. One evening I went through an old chest of letters I had written but never sent. To them, to their mother, even to God. Words I had carried in silence for decades. I read them aloud to the empty room, my voice shaking. "My dear grandchild," one letter began, "I pray you are loved. If you are, then even if I never see you, I will be content. I paused, tears falling onto the paper. That was it, the answer. Hadn't I prayed for this very thing? Hadn't I begged the heavens that they be safe, cherished, and never alone? And now that my prayer had been answered, why was I mourning? It was then I realized something. Love is not about possession. It is not about being first. True love is about giving without expectation, about rejoicing when the beloved is well, even if you are not the reason for it. The next time they came, I welcomed them with lighter eyes. We shared tea, laughter, and stories, and when they spoke of their adoptive family, I listened with genuine gratitude, not hidden sorrow. "Grandma," they said suddenly, watching me, "you seem different today." I smiled softly, because I remembered something important. I prayed for you to be loved, and you were. That means my prayers were answered. What greater joy could I ask for? They blinked as if unsure what to say. Then they leaned across the table and hugged me tightly. "You're incredible," they whispered. I closed my eyes, holding them close. "No, my dear. I am just a grandmother who has learned that love does not diminish when shared. It grows." That night I sat by the window again, but this time I did not weep. I watched the stars and whispered thanks. For even if I was not chosen first, I had been chosen at all. And that in itself was a miracle. The seasons turned again. Winter's chill gave way to the gentle warmth of spring, and my home seemed brighter now, not because of the sunlight, but because of the visits that continued. My grandchild came often, sometimes with stories of school, sometimes just to sit quietly, sipping tea and watching the birds in my garden. The bond between us was still new, still fragile, but it was real, and I had stopped longing for what could never be, stopped measuring my worth against the family who had raised them. Instead, I chose to focus on what I could give: wisdom, patience, and love in its purest form. One afternoon, as we sat on the porch together, I said, "My dear, life will test you many times. You will face choices that hurt. People may not always give you what you give them. But remember this: love that expects nothing in return is the strongest kind of love." They listened intently, their young face thoughtful. "That's hard, though," they admitted. "How can you love without wanting something back?" I smiled gently, by understanding that love is not a transaction. It is not something you trade. It is something you plant, like a seed. Sometimes you will see it bloom in front of you. Other times it will bloom far away where you may never see it. But it will bloom nonetheless. That is the beauty of it. They nodded slowly, as if the words were sinking into their heart. Another time, when they confessed their struggles with belonging, feeling torn between two families, I took their hands and said, "Belonging is not about choosing one side. It is about carrying both sides within you. You are not half of one and half of another. You are whole. You are the bridge between two loves. Walk proudly on that bridge, my dear." I saw tears in their eyes then, and they whispered, "I've never thought of it that way." Moments like these filled me with quiet purpose. Perhaps I had not raised them, but I could help shape their spirit now. Perhaps I could be the voice that guided them when life grew confusing. There were times they came burdened with doubts about their future, about relationships, about identity, and each time I shared not advice from books, but truths carved out of my own scars. When I was young, I told them once, I thought sacrifice meant giving everything until nothing was left of me. But I learned that true sacrifice is not about losing yourself. It is about giving without resentment. When you give with bitterness, it poisons the gift. When you give with joy, it becomes a blessing. Always choose to give joyfully, or not at all. They sat in silence, then whispered, "Grandma, I wish I'd known you sooner." Those words pierced me, but not with pain. This time, with gratitude. For even if we had lost the early years, we still had these moments now, and moments when filled with truth can last longer than years. As our bond deepened, I noticed something remarkable. My grandchild began to bring friends with them, introducing me not just as my grandmother, but with pride, as someone wise. They would sit in my kitchen, a group of young faces, asking questions about life, about choices, about love. And I answered, not as a teacher, but as a storyteller. I told them about mistakes I had made, regrets I had carried, and the lessons hidden inside them. I told them about faith, about resilience, about finding light even in the darkest valleys. One friend said after listening, "I wish I had a grandmother like you." I smiled and replied, "Then you may borrow me for this afternoon." Laughter filled the room, and in that laughter I realized something. Pain had not defeated me. It had shaped me into a vessel that could pour out strength for others. Late at night, when the house grew quiet, I still missed what could never be. The years I had lost, the birthdays and milestones that belonged to another family. But instead of weeping, I whispered prayers of thanks. For though I had been given sorrow, I had also been given a second chance. And with that second chance came a responsibility to use my story not as a wound, but as a lantern for my grandchild, for their friends, even for anyone who might one day hear it. Because life, I had learned, is not about holding on to what we lost. It is about giving meaning to what remains. As I watch my grandchild step into the world, I no longer ache for what I missed. Instead, I am grateful for what I have. They may call another family their first home, but in my heart, I know I was never forgotten. Love is not measured by years together, but by the depth it leaves in the soul. And so I let go of sorrow and hold on to hope. If even one seed of my love takes root in their life, then my journey has been worth it. Because love, my dear, always finds its way home.